With global warming, more and more people are wanting some shade or protection from the rain in their garden. And I always remember about 30 years ago when I was working with a client, and she lived in a big house. She was from South Africa and she moved to the UK. And they were moved into this tiny little cottage while the house was being done up. And there were lots of children, big family, and no space. So she got one of those tiny little gazebos, 3 meters square. I think she got two of them and put them side by side. One of them directly outside the French doors from the kitchen and the other one beside it. So she had an extra, that would be 18 square meters of space. She made it look wonderful. She put bunting, she put plants all around it so you didn't see the structures. She put sofas inside, and it was a place to eat, drink, relax, read the paper, whatever. And it was a very convivial spot outside in the garden that was protected. And she said to me that in South Africa, because of the weather, they had lots of awnings that would come out from the building that looked beautiful. They had shade, canopies and things like that. Many, many different ways that they designed and used them all the time in the garden. And I think we're just latching onto this in the UK. So if we start at the very beginning to make the sort of very simplest, most affordable structures, I think something like this here. Now this, I've got my 4 metal posts, which from a previous Chelsea garden. I put vines on the corners in baseless pots. I did the vines from cuttings. And now you see they're right over and they give me lots of shade. Doesn't protect me from the rain, but I have done them where I put corex over the top as well, with sort of matting on the top of the corex to hide it. And then obviously you've got shade as well. Then you've got rain protection as well. But I've just strung wires across from the metal beams I've put around, and so I've got this instant green sunshade, which I love. But generally, we often use umbrellas here, which are very common in England, so I've got an umbrella there. And the great thing about umbrellas is they're flexible. You can swing it round. So if this didn't have a cover, I could have swung the umbrella round and shaded this. I could swing it round to the people who want the shade, and then the ones that want to preen themselves in the sun can have sun. Now they are cumbersome. You have the stand. If it's not in the middle of the table, you fall over it. It's in the way. But you can have wall-mounted ones, and wall-mounted ones are fine. They can be really useful, but your wall has got to be pretty strong because the loading from the wind is pretty heavy when you get these massive gusts. Now you can get the domestic umbrellas, and of course you pay your money and you take your choice, and some of the very cheap ones do not last for long and do tear quite quickly. But where we've used them in hospital gardens, we've used maybe 4 by 4 square meters, so they're big. You can get a big hospital bed or two underneath, and those are fixed, bolted into the ground permanent. So you don't have the cumbersome base, and they're easy to put up and down. And so you can move on with your umbrellas and go more upmarket. And I think they're wonderful. But also in hospital gardens and other gardens where we've done little arbours, perhaps made of wood or metal, we've often just hung bits of canvas from them so that you've got a little area which is out of the wind and out of the rain. And that's a very simple way that you can make a good looking structure in the garden and make it much more useful. When I visited Edward Bulmer's garden for the podcast series last year, I was impressed. He had a lovely tent in the centre of his lawn. It was made by Village Designs, and he kept it up really from about April round till about November. And so he had an outdoor sitting space, open-sided. You could close the sides though. And he found it a wonderful place, totally different atmosphere from in the house. And if you've got large numbers, lots of daughters, lots of people coming over, then you've got that extra space in a wonderful, relaxing environment. And of course, he decorated it with plants and pots and things like that, rugs underneath. That is stunning. Now, you can also, obviously, people hire stretch tents and other sort of tents for weddings, and sometimes they sell them off. And a client of mine, she was going to hire one, and then she found that actually if she bought one second-hand, it was cheaper than hiring it, particularly as she was particularly as she was going to share it with a friend. So the two of them shared this stretch tent, and they can use it for different events and then share it during the summer months. So just bear that in mind, because if you are short of covered space and you have lots of children and guests and visitors, it is wonderful to have that facility. Now, another thing that's really coming to the fore are these canopies, that awnings that come out from the building. And in the olden days of 20 years ago, you had these really cumbersome cassettes on the side and they went out and in. But now they're designed so they look lighter. Some of them are automated, so in certain winds they will come back on their own. They're at a slight fall so that the rain rains off them. And so many people where we've installed them have said it is just so amazing, because we have this extra room outside that is nicer than any room in the house on a sunny day, or even when it's mildly raining, because you're in the garden. That lovely green feeling always makes you feel that bit more chilled and relaxed. Now, they are expensive, but if you compare it to putting on a conservatory or something like that, it is way, way cheaper, and I think way, way nicer. So just bear that in mind. You do need a certain depth above your doors to fix it, unless you go to great lengths. So if you're actually building a sunroom, and a lot of people that are building these very glazed kitchens are finding they get so hot with the passive gain from the sun, they have to add an awning so it actually keeps the sun off the building, which is another good reason for putting them on. But you must make sure that you do have enough space above the doors to fix that awning to it. So that is another thing to consider. Now, if you want to go one step further, you can employ a professional design an awning for you. I've worked with Roger Bisley for many years now. He started designing awnings and tents, and his company is called Timber Intent, about 30 years ago, and he's done awnings for pubs for me. But I think if he does a small, simple structure for a domestic structure, I think the prices are from about £1,000. Now, that sounds a lot, but bear in mind they're engineered beautifully with stainless steel clamps. They can be left up permanently all the year round. They're designed to take any amount of gusts, and he will make them look very modern, or he'll make them look very traditional. And I think they are amazing. If you see some of the ones he's done, it's fantastic, and it really does extend your building in a fabulous way. Now, Roger pointed out that he uses all sorts of different fabrics to cover them with, and that's something you need to think about. I mean, you could just put up a cotton sheet, but it wouldn't be waterproof. And I mean, I have done them with dust sheets before now for parties and things like that. You just buy a huge dust sheet and string it up. But obviously Roger is way more sophisticated than that sort of thing. And he said the most popular ones are the heavy duty PVC, because the maintenance on these are very good and they do look great. But he also says they do them from acrylic and they do them from cotton canvas mixes. So you want to go into the fabric details on what suits you best. And the other thing that Roger pointed out, that all the three fabrics that he uses are totally waterproof and they're totally windproof, so they will not tear in gusts. Now, he mentioned that he'd just done one in Scotland at the Isle of Lewis, and this is 57 square metres, and it's made out of 3 structures put together, so they've got great versatility of use. So obviously Roger is more sophisticated end of the market, but it's something you would invest in that would last you for years and give you a lot of extra use. Now, you can even go one step further than that, more sophisticated still. I met Guy Ritchie at Chelsea a few years ago, and he was just launching Wild Kitchen, and he had this amazing Wild Kitchen design that he had installed there, and it's extremely sophisticated. It had wonderful cookers, fridges, chilling champagne, anything you could want, sofas. And it was really high-end market, and I think David Beckham invested in one too. But obviously that has many great facets to it and it looks wonderful. but you could create the same sort of thing on a sort of pared down scale and save yourself a few bob. But I think it's a great idea, and I'm sure people do get a lot of use out of them. Having said that, I do think that at different stages of your life, with children at different ages, you might want something really quite simple as a canvas structure in the bit of the wilder bit of the garden where the children can play and have campfires and things like that. And then later on they might want something more sophisticated where they can chill out with their mates. So I think it's good if you can be more versatile and create slightly different things at different stages of your life, in which case you probably won't want to invest a huge amount of money, or you might not be able to afford to. So you might want to do very simple, more DIY structures that you can put up yourself. But whatever you do, I think it's great to actually jump on this whole thing about canvas in the garden, because I think it is the most fabulous material. It's a lovely atmosphere underneath it. It just takes the edge off the weather and makes the garden so much more enjoyable. And it's so much more relaxing, I find, to entertain outside under cover than it is inside.